Wonderful day, wonderful day, wonderful day indeed. This right here is your neighborhood sensei Fouché. And I always begin my shows by first strongly suggesting, because a lot of folks don't like being told what to do. So, moving forward in conversation, I most emphatically implore for all of you beautiful, wonderful, self loving, worthy individuals to stay woke. But in the process, never get all stressed out. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you take all necessary meditative practices and procedures to relax. And always be prepared to take those notes. Today is January 21st, 2026, here in the States of America. And I never call it United because since its inception, these states of America really have never been united other than connected geographically. You know what I'm saying? But as far as a people and an attitude, definitely not. What we have been covering recently is the book or the novel, Control Your Mind and Master Your Feelings by Eric Robertson. This book includes breaking overthinking and master your emotions. I'm going to make a reference to one of my all-time favorite quotes from 1995, if I'm correct, to have the exact year. This black cinema movie called Caught Up, starring Bokeem Woodbine. Him as the main character was going through all of these problems, you know what I'm saying? Because he was living his life dishonestly, you know what I'm saying? And had a high aspect of criminal activity in nature and how he maneuvered. And he got out of prison after doing 2 stints. So he's a 2-time felon. Third time, he'll be a lifer. You know what I'm saying? 3-strike rule. So he's in conversation with himself. You know what I'm saying? He's just thinking out loud as far as the character, but within his head. And he states, thinking is as addictive as crack cocaine. Once you start, it's difficult to stop. And anybody that knows about addiction knows how difficult it is once you start to become hooked on any form of addiction. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's alcohol, drugs, overeating, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. It's extremely difficult. You know, even in a constructive aspect, you know, once you get into being, let me give you this example. So, you know, I do a lot of instrumentals, and every day I have these headphones on and I am going through the process of constructing instrumentals, and I spend about 2-3 hours a day, you know, on an average, you know, sometimes a little shorter if I have other things that I'm required to do and pay more attention to. But normally I'm sitting 2-3 hours going through sounds, melodies, and leveling. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that's an addiction, you know, and once I'm in it, you know, it's hard to, you know, get out of it. You know, I have to kind of force myself into taking breaks so I don't become overwhelmed from a creative aspect. You know what I'm saying? In the art of rhyming, they call it writer's block. You know, when you try to force and press yourself into writing and, you know, you no longer have that spark, to call it that, where you're so connected into, your idea that you're in a strong assertiveness of creation. Once you kind of hit a stall, it's good to step away instead of try to force something to be created. Like, it should be more natural or in flow, as opposed to trying to fight making something happen. So thinking is as addictive as crack cocaine. Once you start, it's hard to stop. And that goes into the title of chapter 2, The Dangers Behind Overthinking. And we're gonna get right into it, because there's so much reading to do, and time is important. And I want to cover this whole chapter and get all of this in. So, excuse me, I took a burp. Let's begin. And the thing about this overthinking, before we start reading, is it can make you extremely unhealthy. Like, the thinking aspect will mess with you physically, as well as psychologically, of course. But physically, it will take a toll on your body when you are overthinking or stressed, to label it that. There are some major health risks that can result from overthinking and excessive worrying. When the brain becomes stressed out due to the lack of sleep resulting from the racing thoughts, parts of the brain actually start to decrease in size or change in shape. The hippocampus is linked to the amygdala, which is then linked to the limbic system. A lot of big words. Pay attention, because we're going to speak very specific and take our time into pronunciation. The limbic system is responsible for the emotions we feel, our survival instincts, and our long-term memory. When the hippocampus or any part of the limbic system is affected, our body's natural instinctual response system sends false signals to our body that we could be in danger. Let's read that again. When the hippocampus or any part of the limbic system is affected, our body's natural instinctual response system sends false signals to our body that we could be in danger. Due to this process, surges of cortisol get produced in large amounts throughout our body. Cortisol is the hormone that gives us symptoms of anxiety attacks, PTSD, trauma. Overthinking is essentially the inability to get out of your head. Your negative thoughts, and I had to clear my throat, your negative thoughts keep you up at night, causing insomnia issues. Your worries keep you tense and stressed, which keeps you irritable and promotes drastic mood swings. Stress also leaves you with tension headaches and makes it so you are unable to focus or concentrate. If this type of behavior and thinking pattern goes on for extended periods of time, you may end up suffering from a chronic disorder such as anxiety, depression, borderline personality disorder, bipolar, etc. The dangers of being an overthinker are as follows. 1. Your chances of developing a mental illness increases. Constantly thinking about your mistakes, failures, and issues can greatly increase your risk of developing a mental health disorder or problem. The cycle is where the more your mental health decreases, the more likely you are to overthink things, which leads you back to more mental health problems. Number 2, analysis paralysis is a real thing that, in short, is defined by literally paralyzing your problem solving and decision making skills. People believe that overthinking is actually helping because they are rehashing everything they haven't thought about, which will stop future problems from arising. However, this is not the case. And I'm not going to have to ad lib, and I was, but we're just going to read. The thing about overthinkers is that they never come to a solution for their issues at hand. And I call myself a constant processor. Instead of overthinking one specific thing in one specific time, I just will continuously process and use decompression methods consistently to not become overwhelmed emotionally. The thing about overthinkers is that they never come to a solution for their issues at hand. Rather, they get into this habit of constantly thinking about the issues which are forefront in their mind but may not be critical issues, such as what they should wear to impress others and where to go on vacation, and create problems about the places in which they go on vacation to. This creates an analysis paralysis situation. Even if the individual doesn't feel as though they are paralyzed, the bottom line here is that because there is no solution to the ongoing stressors that the individual experiences, the constant dwelling makes it difficult for someone to make a decision and stick with it. 3. Sleep is disrupted. Overthinking causes sleep disturbances and may even turn into a full-on insomnia disorder. Worrying all the time and having the inability to shut your mind off can cause you to get fewer hours of sleep at night and can cause you to not get good enough sleep also. Number 4, trying new things seems impossible. Trying new things seems impossible because rather than just doing it, an overthinker will overthink all of the ins and outs of their decision before trying anything. Soon, they will come up with all of the reasons why they shouldn't, rather than all the reasons they should. Eventually, they will look back on all of the opportunities they missed out on and prepare to do something new when the chance happens again. However, when the chance presents itself, the cycle repeats, and then it becomes habitual that opportunities don't seem to be happening. 5. Self-doubt becomes prevalent. Self-doubting thoughts happen because of those cognitive distortions. Thinking too much about everything often makes us question and second guess everything around us. You may feel as though you aren't making the right choices or that all your decisions will end in bad outcomes. 6. Decreases your enjoyment with activities. Overthinking generally keeps you existing in the past or the future. You know what I'm saying? That's called time trapped. You know, living in the past and hoping for a future that isn't there because you're not present. So when you try to focus on the moment, your thoughts are distracting you from what is going on right now. This takes away from your enjoyment with the things you are trying to do within the moment. 7. Can lead to mood disorders like anxiety. Overthinking can be a sign of anxiety and vice versa. Overthinking causes anxiety because of the continuous habit to reevaluate every circumstance. In a way, you are training your brain to think this way, in which it starts to form and create neurons that process and develop hormone changes. This can result in decreased healthy chemicals in the brain, reduced serotonin levels, and create anxiety and other mood disorders. Overthinking stems from being a perfectionist, from having low self esteem, or from life just being too hectic and crazy that there is no time to settle. When you don't give attention to your brain, your thoughts spiral out of control because of the very fact that you are trying to avoid them and push them away. Now we're going to define some terms that we were just referencing in our reading paragraph. We're going to itemize these specific things. The limbic system. The limbic system governs our emotional functioning by sending hormonal responses throughout your body. It consists of 3 neural areas: the hippocampus, amygdala, and the hypothalamus. The limbic system is the part of the brain responsible for regulating emotions, stress, anxiety, and other distressing feelings. Also, it takes what we see and how we interpret situations and turns them into how we respond emotionally to them. The hippocampus and amygdala, along with other regions, play important roles in helping the limbic system do its job. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure in the limbic system, which fires responses from anxiety. The hippocampus is the part of the limbic system where memories form, and then are moved to be sorted and stored elsewhere by the amygdala and the larger limbic system. The hippocampus. During a distressing encounter, the hippocampus is activated and is mainly accountable for memory functions and processing. What the hippocampus function initially suggests is that past experiences and memories associated with present experiences can heighten or conduct distressing emotions, leading to anxiety symptoms. The hippocampus, as mentioned, plays an important role in the limbic system, which is responsible for regulating sensations you feel in your body caused by your emotions. The limbic system is also responsible for memory and how your intuition works. The hippocampus not only organizes and interprets new memories, but it also connects your experiences. Brain scientists have found that there is a rear part of the hippocampus that implements different types of memory. The rear part of the hippocampus process spatial memories, The rear part of the hippocampus processes spatial memories. Spatial memory processing is when someone memorizes the route to different places in a big city or memorizes complex things, turning it into photographic memory. And in short, it's also called memory muscle. Sleep regroups these memories and grows the rear part of the hippocampus, which leads to better memory. It is believed that the hippocampus registers and temporarily stores these spatial and short-term memories, then ships them to the long-term memory center of the brain. When the hippocampus is damaged due to chronic stress caused by overthinking everything, you may find it difficult to remember things such as dates, events, names, and putting memories into chronological order. Damage to the left hippocampus affects how you recall verbal information. Damage to the right hippocampus affects the ability to recall visual information. Damage to the hippocampus means that this part of the brain can actually shrink in size. If it shrinks, you have a higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease and significant decreases in memory performance. The amygdala. The amygdala is an almond-shaped region of the brain located in the temporal lobe part of the brain. There is one portion of the amygdala on either side of your brain, and both are thought to be part of the limbic system. The amygdala is, because they have a typo, is mainly responsible for processing and perceiving emotions such as sadness, anger, and fear, along with controlling aggression. It stores long-term memory and works with the hippocampus to process and store memories of experiences and emotions to be able to recognize future events. Depending on how big or small your amygdala is, it can increase or decrease your aggressive behaviors, such as acting or not acting on impulses. The bigger your amygdala is, the less likely you will have the urge to act on impulsive behaviors. The smaller in size it is, the more likely you are to behave in an aggressive nature. Damage to the amygdala results in problems with memory formation and learning, creates fear and sensitivity to emotions, and is associated with a higher risk of depression. Since it is strongly correlated with the limbic system, where hormones are produced and where temperature and appetite are controlled, any type of amygdala damage will greatly impact your ability to function. For that matter, if any part of the limbic system is damaged, such as the amygdala, you may experience reduced feelings of hunger, satiety, You may experience reduced feelings of hunger. You may experience reduced feelings of hunger, satiety, as emotional responses will have changed. We had to fumble through that a little bit. So pardon me and thank you. The amygdala and the hippocampus, and let me go back for a minute. Since it is strongly correlated with the limbic system where hormones are produced and where temperature and appetite are controlled, any type of amygdala damage will greatly impact your ability to function. For that matter, if any part of the limbic system is damaged, such as the amygdala, you may experience reduced feelings of hunger, satiety, as emotional responses will have changed. The amygdala and the hippocampus work together to process and store memories. In short, the hippocampus breaks apart and compartmentalizes perceptions of experiences, while the amygdala processes your emotions involving these experiences, people, situations, sensations, and things. Hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is located between the pituitary gland and the thalamus in the center of the brain. The hypothalamus is located between the pituitary gland and the thalamus in the center of the brain. And we had to read it over in flow. It is responsible for producing hormones and stimulating sensations in the body. If the hypothalamus is damaged, it can cause mood disorders. The main role of the hypothalamus is to keep the body in homeostasis as much as possible. Homeostasis is defined as healthful and balanced body state. The hypothalamus reacts as a link between the endocrine and nervous systems to accomplish a homeostatic state. The main functions it plays a role in are body temperature, thirst, appetite, emotions, sleep routines, libido or libido, childbirth, blood pressure and sugar levels, balancing bodily liquids. If any of these functions become unbalanced, it is the responsibility of the hypothalamus to regulate or send signals to you so that you can balance these functions. The hypothalamus is also responsible for processing hormones, in which it works with the pituitary gland to send hormones throughout the body. Hormones controlled by the hypothalamus include antidiuretic hormone, increases how much water is absorbed into the body by the kidneys. Corticotropin releasing hormone. This is responsible for regulating metabolism and immune responses. Gonadotropin releasing hormone. This keeps the sexual organs in control and working properly. Oxytocin hormone. Oxytocin stimulates a mother's breast milk to work, regulates body temperature, and controls balanced sleep cycles. Prolactin controlling hormone. In lactating mothers, it tells the body how much or less milk to produce. Thyrotropin releasing hormone. The thyroid is what this hormone is in control of. It releases the hormones that stabilize metabolism, energy, and developmental growth. If any part of the brain that functions inside the limbic system is damaged or not working to its full potential, then your hormones will be out of whack. Also, your emotions will be more challenging to manage, which develops uncontrollable systems revolving around disorders such as anxiety or depression. Overthinking and excessive worrying created by negative thought patterns can increase the risk of having these parts of the brain damaged. How to reduce overthinking. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and when released into your body, drives symptoms of sweating, shaking, feelings of fear, nausea, and other alarming sensations. When you overthink, you are actually causing unnecessary stress to your system, which then stimulates the hypothalamus to produce excess amounts of cortisol. This is why you have anxiety attacks or become triggered out of what seems to be nowhere. The amygdala and the hippocampus work together to process the experiences you go through into memories. These memories can lead to triggers later on when you undergo what you have trained your brain to feel as fearful or dangerous. The next few steps are some broad general guidelines to retrain your brain out of overthinking. 1. See the bigger picture. When you overthink, you sometimes overthink about all the tiny details regarding one situation so that the problem seems bigger than it really is. So train your brain to overlook at your problem as a whole. For example, say there is a problem in your relationship and your spouse is ignoring you. You perceive them as avoiding you and then start to unravel all of the reasons why you aren't good enough. You spiral out of control and think about if they could be seeing someone else and come up with the worst case scenario. Stop right there. Instead, look at it as a whole. They may not be ignoring you. They may just have a lot on their minds, so they aren't focused on you. Ask yourself, are they under a lot of stress? Is this out of character for them? Do they make time for you on a regular basis? Give yourself and your relationship some credit. Why did you get involved to begin with? Try to find solutions to how you can stop this avoidance tactic and talk with them. Look at what is important rather than trying to think about all the small details that will drive you insane. Be comfortable with the unknown. One factor that remains true, or just in general life circumstances, is that you cannot control everything, nor can you know the future. Overthinkers generally focus on the uncertainty in their lives because they are trying to avoid disasters or solve what cannot be solved. Focus more on what you can control rather than worrying about the unknown events and spinning it into something bigger than what it is. And what it is nothing yet because it is uncertain. First, understand that what is done and cannot be changed. Overthinking and stressing about what could have happened or what might or might not happen is only training your brain into unhealthy patterns which can damage the limbic system. Second, understand that the future is always uncertain, and uncertainty isn't always a negative thing. Control what you can and distract your mind from what you can't. In every negative experience, there is a positive, a lesson to learn from, an opportunity to grow. Let me read that again. In every negative experience, there is a positive, a lesson to learn from, and an opportunity to grow. Tell yourself that it is okay to be uncertain and live your life the way you want, because spiraling down won't help anything. Observe your negative thoughts. In most cases, people who overthink are already aware of their negative thoughts and how they feel about themselves and the world around them. Instead of acting on your emotional impulses resulting from your negative thoughts, observe the negativity. Be mindful of your negative thinking and see them as just thoughts. Let them come and go as they are going to. 4, find something you can control. This can be anything, but it has to be at least one thing you can control. Overthinkers are often perfectionists and will go to great lengths to make something perfect. For people who are chronic worriers and excessive thinkers, there may be some very negative consequences. Look at the bigger picture. Watching your thoughts, accepting what can't be known, and controlling one thing at a time is the first step to training your brain out of these unhealthy overthinking patterns. The brain controls every aspect of what you do in your life, from second nature things like using the bathroom, eating, and breathing to more complex things like making decisions. If we don't take care of our physical well-being and our minds, then our brains will start to change and form different perceptions of false realities. I call it the old school Ghetto Boys song, your mom playing tricks on you. You play tricks on your own mind by the thoughts that you create based on your strong levels of insecurity. Overthinking is an unhealthy trait that people develop over time, which leads to constant stress and worry. If left unchecked, it can even become second nature and habitual. By finding ways to reverse the damage to the limbic system, amygdala, hippocampus, and hypothalamus, you will start to understand that life is a lot easier without the constant unnecessary stress and worry. And that finishes our chapter. Next chapter In chapter 3, from overthinking to social anxiety. And these are just the steps that start to forward when you're in a negative thought processing. Because your overthinking is going to fall into how you deal socially. You know what I'm saying? Your social behavior, your interactions with the public, or lack of. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, for me, being what I would label or used to be extremely stressed, or being an overthinker, always worrying, I had to learn how to, again, become a constant processor. Because if I'm constantly thinking about things, and they don't have to be extremely, extremely important, and even the most important things, I'm going to have to, section that out, and it's not overcomplicated if you are someone that lives an honest and authentic life. You know what I'm saying? Because you'll be able to have options available to where, things won't feel so compressed. You know what I'm saying? And you'll be able to create better breathing space upon dealing with these uncomfortable situations that arise more regularly. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always things that are going to come up and happen in life. It's not the problems, it's how you deal with the problems. Because the problems are problems. Problems are always going to come up, and they're going to always exist. How you deal with the problems is the next level of mastering, you know what I'm saying, your mind, or controlling your mind and mastering your feelings, as far as, the title of the book. So for me, things that I hope to happen or want to happen, like, I think about those things regularly. I don't overthink about those things in a lot of moments, but I keep a constant light finger tap on my shoulder to myself, to continuously remind myself things that I would like to accomplish or see come to fruition. You know what I'm saying? But if you wind up becoming time trapped and wasting time, and then all of a sudden a very high anxious happening occurs, you don't know how to deal. You know what I'm saying? You're not prepared, and you are extremely limited in your development in order to handle these pressures most maturely. But we ain't going to hold on to this conversation anymore too much currently. You know what I'm saying? We're going to move forward and call the next moment another moment for us to continue in this dialogue. But let me state again, this right here is your neighborhood sensei Fouché, and I'll always first state that I strongly suggest, before emphatically implore, for all of you beautiful, wonderful, self-loving, worthy individuals to stay woke. But in the process, never get all stressed out, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you take all necessary meditative practices and procedures, including environmental change when and if necessary, to relax. And always be prepared to take those notes. Again, all y'all be smooth, in unity, one.